The wireless world presents some unique challenges for cell phone users when it comes to etiquette. A new Pew Research Center survey shows that 92% of American adults own a cell phone. 89% admit to using their phones at a recent social gathering. But 82% of adults say those text calls and photos at events frequently or occasionally hurt the conversation. So where should phone users draw the line? NewYorker.com editor and CBS News contributor Nicholas Thompson is at the table. Nick, good morning.
Good morning.
We're conflicted about this, aren't we?
We're absolutely conflicted. We're all convinced that the way everybody else uses their phone is really irritating and annoying. But the way we use our phones,
I gotta check that.
just great. But you know what actually really interested me about this study is that normally when I get a study like this, it's so depressing, right? We're all addicted to Candy Crush. We don't talk to our kids. You know, the relationships are all on the rocks. I read this one. I thought, oh, you know what? We're kind of figuring this out. There are sort of standard norms. We're beginning to understand where it's appropriate to use a phone and where it's not. There's kind of consensus that it's fine to use a phone when you're walking down the street. It's fine when you're in line. And it's a really bad idea when you're at dinner with your family or when you're at church. And everybody agrees on that.
But there are generational differences.
There are definitely generational differences. There are gender differences. One of the most interesting things is that women are much more concerned about phones taking people out of conversations. It's something like 41% to 32% believe that, that phones take people out of the moment too often now.
Would you say they are right?
Of course they're right. I mean, obviously. The phone, if you're on your phone, you're not present. You're not engaged.
Talking to the person across from you.
If you're at a social event, you should be at the social event.
But
if you're at a meeting, you should be at the meeting.
Friends planning weddings, planning big parties. Some people have started instituting this no social media or no phones. Check it at the door.
Yeah.
I find that a step too aggressive for me.
That is a step too aggressive. And you know, the first stat that Anthony talked about, so I think it's something that 89% of people say that at their last social engagement they used their phone. Now that sounds terrible, right? But most of them, 78% of them, are saying they actually used it to enhance that, right? So they were taking a picture of somebody there, or maybe they were calling somebody to get them to an event. So if you block phones from, even coming in the door, then you don't get to record it, you don't get to periscope it, you don't get to do all kinds of things.
Recording has become a huge part of it. And I think sometimes that actually, I know at concerts all the time, it drives me nuts because it becomes about the photograph and not about the concert.
Right, and if you have little kids, you'll get to have this moment where the kids start to do something cute and all the adults will bring out their phones and suddenly the moment, it just entirely shifts the moment. So it is very hard to come up with norms, but like I said, we still have some problems, but I think we're actually kind of figuring it out.
Where do we have the biggest differences of opinion in terms of how to use phones?
Well, the most interesting one in that report was in restaurants, right? And so young people, hey, it's fine. 50% of young people, no problem, use your phone in a restaurant. Old people, no way, don't use your phone in a restaurant. There was a really big split. I think it was 50 to 26, so a 2-to-1 split. That's partly the way we act in restaurants. Older people are probably, having dinner with their spouse. Younger people, it's probably a group with a big plate of nachos. But it is it is also quite different. If I'm at a restaurant and I'm with somebody, I don't want them on their phone. So that's one big difference. Another big difference is the number of times you're willing to turn it off. And then there's a really interesting piece of data, which is how often do you use your phone just to kind of check out?
It's a social crutch.
Right. Like to sort of just step away.
Best thing ever happened to the elevator ride, I'll tell you that.
Well, and the difference here is young people, I think it's 76%, say that sometimes they do step out and just look at their phone. And that's because of what you said at the very beginning, that for millennials, a phone is kind of what a blanket is for a little kid. It's just a source of comfort. It's a source of, you know what, I feel kind of awkward here. I'll just go check my phone. Something will be fine.
We all do it. I noticed, though, I was walking through Manhattan here in New York City, and there was a long line outside a salad chain, and every single person was on their phone. And my immediate thought was, what if all those people were actually talking to each other? What a different experience they would have in a different social engagement as opposed to looking at their phone.
But on the other hand, how much better is it if they're actually, watching CBS or, getting information about the world or engaging in lively conversations on social media?
I know. I think people are becoming less able to have personal interactions in a way, or have less EQ, and it's partly due to the phone.
I think that's true.
We'll tweet about this later. Thank you.